I want to share what I consider to be one of the best ways to quickly experience non separation and non duality. And this is about our direct experience as opposed to our beliefs about the world and reality and experience. So, a starting point is to recognize that very obviously we experience the world, the seemingly outside external objective world through our five senses. So through seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, and touching, and that's it. So that's how we experience the world. And the most powerful of our senses is seeing. That is the most dominant of our senses. And I remember being on a business course many years ago. I just finished university, and the instructor asked everyone in the room well, first of all, he pointed out that we had five senses, and he asked everyone to consider the degree to which each sense provided information which we use to navigate and understand reality. Like, what was the most dominant of the senses, or were they even? And everyone in the room, pretty much everyone in the room from memory, said, well, we have five senses. And so if the entirety of the information we get is 100% and there are five senses, we divide it by five. And seeing gives us 20% of the information, hearing the other 20%, feeling 20%, so on and so forth. But I remember it was just really abundantly obvious to me then that seeing was so much more dominant than the others. So I answered that seeing was 90%, 5% for hearing, let's say, and split the rest between feeling, tasting, and smelling. And I remember the instructor was somewhat surprised with my answer, and he asked me, how did you get that? And I said, well, it was a bit of an educated guess. And he confirmed that yes, in it, seeing is that much more dominant. He came up with stats like something like 95% and 2% 1 or something like that. And I've since heard other stats. Because obviously you can't be entirely definitive about this, but other people have said, for example, 60% seeing, close to 40% hearing, and then lower and lower. But what is obvious is that seeing is by far the most dominant of our senses. So if we acknowledge that it provides the vast proportion of the information with which we interpret reality, and then with a thought experiment, drop those percentages back to 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%. So we give each of our senses an equal weighting, and then take seeing out of the equation. So you can shut your eyes, and we start by actually just exploring our internal experience of thoughts and feelings. And it's obvious that our thoughts and our feelings and our sensations of the body arise within us. Now, we also tend to believe that our awareness is located in the body. And what we experience within the body, therefore, thoughts and feelings, arises within awareness. And this is really obvious. So if right now I have a thought of a car, an image of a car arises, and if someone asks me, is that within awareness or outside of awareness? The answer obviously has to be within awareness. So now, if we turn it outwards and explore our external experience, explore the world, but not through sight to start with. So a good one to use for this is hearing. So just notice what you can hear. And I can hear a very subtle hum of air conditioning from up there. If I ignore the label, ignore what my mind says about it, and just go directly to the experience itself and ask, does that sound arise within this field of awareness, the same field of awareness in which thoughts and feelings arise internally, seemingly internally, or does it arrive outside of awareness? And the answer has to be it's the same field of awareness that thoughts and feelings and sensations arise in my experience, that same field, it's not like there's one field that experiences my internal experience and then another field that experiences these sounds. It's the same field of awareness that sounds rising in. So purely from using the sound sense, there is one field of awareness that we are, and within it arises all sounds, and you can't separate the sounds from the field of awareness in which they arise. So purely from the just exploring the sound sense, there is just one seamless field within which sounds appear that are not separate from the field itself, like vibrations in the field. So in hearing, if we just went on hearing, it would be far more obvious that separation was an illusion. But then when we open our eyes, it seemed, because there are different shapes and colors and seemingly space, etc., and the mind carves things up, there's a house, there's a window, there's a fence, then it seems obvious that we're in here and the world is out there. But actually, if we forget the labels, again, there is just this field of awareness in which our internal experience arises, in which our sensations and also sounds arise, but also what we see. It's not a different field of awareness. It just seems that way because seeing seems to carve things up more obviously than hearing. But if we give hearing equal weighting as seeing, or even more weighting to the hearing, then it's much more clear that actually separation is not what it seems to be. It's one big field of awareness. We are not separate from it. It's impersonal. It's not my awareness. It's just this field of awareness with no boundaries in which everything appears, including me in the form of sensations of my body, my thoughts, feelings, but also external sounds and sights. It's all within the same field. Now, you might not get this at first, of course, but just play around with that internal experience and then keeping your eyes shut, go to what you can hear and ask yourself, is it the same field of awareness or is it a different field of awareness? And you have to say it's the same field of awareness. So if we paid as much attention to our hearing sense as our seeing sense, non-duality would be that much more obvious.